Okay.
It'll take a few minutes to turn on. I had it put on
Oh, no. Gosh, I can't take it. All right. Call the meeting to order. If we could rise for the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Brad, could you take the roll call?
Wondered, yeah, I'm here. Ivar. Here. Line.
Here,
Dean.
here,
Barr.
here.
Matt. Here.
Here. As a courtesy to members of the audience and the Board of Education, please silence your cell phones. Public comment, any person wishing to address the board may speak at this time. Any person wishing to address the board should complete and submit a public comment form to the board president immediately prior to the beginning of the meeting. Public comment forms are available at each board meeting. Presentations are limited to 5 minutes. We have no public comment this evening. Can I get an approval of the agenda?
So move. Support.
All in favor?
Yes.
Excellent. Report agenda. I'll start with Brent. You want to start?
Sure. I'd just like to say, like Amy and I got to attend the school board training session, which was awesome. I learned a lot there, so I highly recommend that again, like you recommended for new school board members to make that. Learned a lot. That was great. Got to attend a couple of JV lacrosse games last couple of weeks, and that was awesome. I mentioned before that that's the first time we got to play together in a year, which is amazing to think about that they went a whole year without playing together. And then just congratulate the competitive cheer team that winning the conference championship. So that's all I have.
Okay,
Excellent.
so I've been out of touch just a bit. So they won the championship, the cheerleaders,
But
the competitive,
congrats,
excuse me,
team.
the competitive cheer.
Yep.
That's so awesome. Thanks for bringing that up.
Really good stuff.
That's really good.
All right. Amy.
Still working with the Parks and Recreation Board, which is great. They did a lot of work with Chris Orm to go around the Little League field. They're really, really hoping that partnership with Parks and Recs in the school can be a good partnership. They're talking a lot about too, what are the things around the schools, each of the schools, that are safety issues. So they're really wanting to figure out, even from citizens or from us or whatever, we've all been assigned different parks to go and look. And so, there are a few different things that are ready to definitely need to be fixed. And that's the safety for our kids, since our kids are the ones that use them. So it does seem like there's a lot going on towards mostly working for safety and really hoping that we can work with the Little League. So
What is the safety concern? Are they about equipment or the ground,
Some
or
of
is it
it.
about predators?
no, mostly equipment,
Okay.
mostly equipment, yes. So
I don't know,
that's good.
sometimes, this is a dark place that
Yeah.
could, potentially be.
Oh, for
Yeah,
sure.
something
Well,
like
they
that.
did actually talk about lighting. And they talked about, what are the hours that parks are open? Because, it's to dusk, but that gets later and later. And then some people rent them out for parties, some people rent them out for reunions. So they have been talking a little bit about safety and what's a logical time to have people out of the parks. But most of it is like broken benches. Heritage has a huge problem with that, the part around the lake. And so they're talking about what does it cost to make it safe for our kids and for our families, and how do we attract, we have so many young families that are moving in to Grandville because they love this school system. And so what are they, what are we offering as a city as well? So it's a really important partnership. And it's really cool to see all the parks that are next to elementary schools and how that was very intentional. So they want to keep an intentional relationship.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Good deal. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Jason.
Nothing to report.
Kim.
Not a lot to report, but happy to see wood shop is back on
hiring list. My son was missing that a lot this year.
Uh-huh.
And I know a lot of kids are ready to get their hands into some technical spaces again, so glad to see we're supporting that. Also glad that the seniors are having some opportunities coming up. Been hearing a lot of that around the community that they're excited to be able to celebrate in different formats this year, a little bit more than maybe last year was. So thank you for that. The note that you sent us, Roger, was really cool about the high school students who jumped in at Grandville and helped with that kid. And
Yeah, that was great.
I think that really captures a lot of the spirit of our district in terms of being kind to one another. So I really appreciate that experience in my own life. And also every time we together, I'm gonna say it. Thank you. Thank you for sending the kids back this year and for providing us consistent data and pulling us back in when we needed to. Again, this week I had an opportunity. I was talking to people in Pennsylvania, and they were saying how upset they were that school board was making them go back to school. And the staff said, trust, just have trust. I was scared too, and it turned out fine. And it was a great year, and our kids did a lot better for it. And so thank you for being leaders in that once again.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Good deal. Bob,
Yeah, I've got something. I'm gonna take my mask down for this, so if you're offended, I hope you're not. My report is really about, out of order and the instance that occurred at the last board meeting between you and I. And I will say, every board member should always have an equal voice. They should be heard. And that right was taken away from me this time. And it's not the first time. And I'm gonna say it again, you guys probably hate it when I say it, but I'm gonna do it. I've been on this board for 20 years. I've only known one board member that shuts people down. And it's Ms. Buck. And I thought it was disrespectful. And if you never even gave me a chance to talk about what I was going to talk about. And you are out of order. And as president, the purpose of the president is to ensure that as much dialogue, from my perspective anyway, as much dialogue is understood, that we debate as effectively as we can. A more diverse school board helps us truly understand the issues, understand the opportunities that we may not even think about that other board members are thinking about. So I was offended, I was pissed, and I was about 5 minutes from resigning. So if my suggestion is you seek some guidance, some consulting, but I pray it doesn't happen again.
thank you. Barb,
Well, I was thinking about the staff and just all the wonderful things that have done to make this be such a great transition, I guess, into our schools again. And I don't talk to a lot of people because again, I'm still working from home, but I do get on Zoom and you hear things about other districts, honestly, and some of the concerns, and they're never from Grandville people, you know. So I do feel very thankful to all of our staff, and I don't know if we call them the teachers and our administrators, and our support staff, and our volunteers, and our sheriff. I just again, I feel that community spirit that you spoke of, Kim. And I too wanted to say that we need positiveness. You know, we need to keep finding the good in what we're doing. And so far, it seems like there's a lot of good here in Grandville. So thank you for everything you've done, Roger and your staff, and to this board as well. New members learning how to do things. It's not easy, and we do have times of conflict or disagreement, and it is healthy. And hope that again, we just continue to support one another in these times where we're coming back and being close together, and all of that's important. So yeah, this big thanks is mainly my report today. And
excellent. Thank you. I only have one thing, and that is that I appreciate again, Roger, your updates. They're super positive, and I think that at this time, we need to remain that way as often as we can. I'm a judge. I was a judge for an essay writing contest for Lake Michigan Credit Union, where they give out 20 scholarships for $2,500 each. So I landed the job of reading finally the final 36 essays, or probably over 450.
Wow.
And every single essay was real difficult to read them because they all were extremely related to mental health and the challenges that many kids experienced being home, losing parents, people dying, divorces, abuse in their homes. And it really gave me this realistic picture of just 38 voices that were in the finalists for the scholarship. So again, I just want to thank, I know we have principals here today, and I appreciate y'all being here. You have a huge taxing job, and that is to keep an upbeat attitude amongst your staff and amongst your kids. And I guess that's probably one thing that I apologize to Bob that he feels this way. I do want to keep our meetings positive, and I sometimes think that it can go into a negative direction fast. So I respect your opinion, obviously. Unfortunately, you think that I'm not a good president, whatever, that's your opinion. And I'm going to go on trying to maintain a positive attitude and focus on the positivity of our district. So thank you for your comments. And with that, I'm going to throw it to you, Superintendent's report.
Okay.
Excellent.
And I'd just like to start off by saying it is so good to see everybody in person. It's so good to be here in person. I mentioned a little bit earlier, I was getting ready to leave, went home and ate. I was getting ready to leave, and my wife noticed I had a little more pep in my step, and she goes, "You seem a little more excited today." And I think she knew we were in person. She was, kind of giving me a hard time because I was excited about that. And so it's just really good to see everyone. Winter sports wrapping up, a lot of things to celebrate. Our kids, our coaches have done, during this time of COVID, a phenomenal job in managing. Brian Parsons has done an amazing job in our administration. So kudos to everyone, but we have a lot to be proud of. Our kids are enjoying many of those experiences. It's good to see some grandparents back in to those games. It was mainly parents, and now we're getting a few grandparents. And as a matter of fact, I was at the basketball game the other day, and I kept hearing Mr. Barrett. So I turned around, it was Cam Terry. So it's good to see students, in the place too. So just very excited. I know getting outside is going to be a great thing here for spring sports, but I think it's been a good winter sports season, and something that we can be proud of, because our kids certainly have done us proud, if you will. There are a lot of other events being planned, as was mentioned. Many of our things at the high school for seniors. The review show, I know I read the plan for that. And just a lot of those things are popping up. So we're really excited to see, and I think it's going to be a fabulous end to the school year. So looking forward to it.
I just had a question. Do you feel that we've lost a lot of knowledge with our students? Was there a feel for that amongst teachers? Like, oh man, we're really behind, or we're.
I don't sense that as much, and we have a lot of data. We do have some areas that hurt. I mean, you're not going to go through what our kids and our adults have gone through, and especially our kids who haven't had the experiences of being in person, or the supports and interventions, whether it be academic or social, emotional, that they get from being present. Physically present. You're not going to go through that without having some of those things. But I think our staff has done a fabulous job noticing and trying to do everything we can to help in those situations. But I think overall, if I have to look at our current data, I would say it's much better than I thought it was going to be. But yet we do have some gaps, and we have some things that with our kids we're going to have to really focus on. You know, we will, you'll hear some information tonight about a robust program that we're working on that we believe will help with that. And you also hear a little more on the things that the middle school and high school are doing as far as supports and interventions for our kids. So there definitely have been kids greatly impacted, and I think everybody has been impacted some, without question, but I do think we have systems in place, and we'll continue to look at, you know, what our kids need when they need it and focus on those things in the future years.
May I add something to that?
You bet.
I had 2 testimonials from people that there's a young mother at South who is taking over the garden responsibilities. And we talked about how she did remote, and her teacher was remarkable. And she said that she adored being able to be home with her child to learn remotely.
Wow.
And another father who his son's math scores shot through the roof with the teacher he had. So I actually asked them both to write to you and make sure that those teachers were uplifted as great examples of what is possible.
Right.
And they were thrilled with remote.
Wow.
And so that was really nice to hear.
That's good.
Yeah,
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
yeah.
Good stuff. Any old business?
No business.
All right, moving on to consent action items. Can I have a motion? All in favor?
Yeah.
Excellent. All opposed? Super. All right, we have the first item up. It is regarding to reapprove the Grandville extended COVID-19 learning plan for the month of March. It is recommended that the Board of Education reapprove the Grandville extended COVID-19 learning plan for March. Can I have a motion? Excellent. Roger.
Okay, and we have some people to give you a little update on some things, but right now I'll turn it over to Mr. Merkel or Dr. Merkel, I should say, and he can give you a little bit of update.
So we talked about this last time, right? Our learning plan, our extended learning plan, we're required by the Michigan Department of Education through legislation to update this every month. Once again, we have 0 questions, but there were some questions last time about Fridays, right? I think you can kind of kick that off. And we thought that would be a great opportunity to bring Mr. Ken C. and Mr. Adam Langto in to talk about their perspectives on how the remote Fridays have gone. If you remember the plan back when there was one of the fortunate times we were in person, right, at the high school auditorium where they presented the idea, was all based on intervention and supporting kids in these times that we're struggling finding failure rates. And I know they told some specific things, but also just have a lot of anecdotal things to share about Fridays and answer any questions you might have specifically about that. So whomever wants to start.
Sure. Do you have questions to start with, or you just, is it more about, you just want to get some clarity on?
Just start with some background.
Sure. So obviously we started, Adam and I talked in the fall about just seeing the need for students based on what we were seeing in the grade data for some support. Students were feeling, was looking very much like they were very overwhelmed. And it wasn't just the remote learners, it was a lot of our in-school learners as well. So we obviously proposed the plan, and there was a point when it was a Wednesday, we transitioned to a Wednesday and then back to a Friday. But basically, we have an opportunity for our teachers to meet one-on-one with students, you know, in each class for 30 minutes on Fridays. But really, what they do is they break it up into 5 or 10-minute segments with the kids in our building so that they can see more kids. And what they've reported is just the smaller the meetings, the more impact they seem to have with the students. I talked to some of the teachers the other day, and they just said that there are some students that are just struggling. You know, they want to be here, but for whatever reasons, they're home. Those students are really appreciating that time to meet with the teacher, as much about the relationship as it is the academics, is what the teacher does. And yes, it's helpful to them academically, but some of these students, it's uplifting for them. They're willing to try a little harder in those situations, because there are some, it's just hard for some of those students who are from home. So, we started the year at about 180 kids remote, and we're down to, as of last week, about 130. I spend a lot of my time during the day calling homes of the students that have been identified as struggling students that are remote, and talking to the parents about transitioning them back. There's some fear and some things you have to work through and talk about. And for some, it's like, hey, this is what we're doing, and we respect that. But we try to get students back. It's just better. It's just, and a lot of the parents report that, obviously their student was doing much better academically before they had to be at home. So we're doing a lot of that. We still have our SEL lesson once a month, the first Friday of every month. The counselors create a video. It's about a 25-minute lesson that the students, they report to their 7th hour remotely from home on Friday, and they go through that activity that is led by our counselors, and that's something that we try to keep consistent, because we know there is a need for that. So, other questions, guys?
I'm wondering, in that trying to get kids to come back to school, if you find that because our teachers are vaccinated, that there's more willingness to send their children back. Has that been any at all?
I haven't had anybody speak to me about that. It was just, there was so much fear of the unknown before, and now they're feeling so much more optimistic. When it's very nice to be able to say, and I've said this to so many parents so many times, not a single student has been contact traced back to another student in our school. It's not that our students haven't gotten COVID, some haven't, but we haven't had a single student get sick and have it caused by being in school. It was whatever, weekends or whatever happened at their home. But that it says a lot about the safety of the school. So, but I'll let Adam share more thoughts with you too. But what the parents that want to keep their kids remote, and what are their concerns with having them come back to school? There are some, they have, for instance, parent or grandparents that live in the home that might not be vaccinated yet. There is some mask concern at that handful of houses where they just said, as long as there's a mandate to wear masks, they're going to make their kids come to school. That's, and I don't get into that. They just say, hey, love to have your kid back, we'd be better. And they will tell me, you're right, I wish they could come back to you, but until they change that mandate. So most of it is there's something in the home that is a factor. Like one of the parents, which might be diabetic, or the child themselves. We do have a parent who's going through chemo. So that student needs to stay home as much as that student wants to be there. So bad. But
and despite the risk, they're just not willing. I have the same conversations with our K-6 families, right? Let's bring them back, And for some of them, it's just still no. I'm not willing to risk it. And those are delicate conversations. But our people, like Ken said, he said that so well, right? We just have a tough conversation without judgment, and I kind of leave it at that.
I was going to stop there. I'm a little bit of a salesman. I've been hitting about 3 a week. Right? You got to come back. And it's great to tell them, and the teachers send an email back with like just cheers and yes, right? Because they just know how badly, we meet once a month about the kids, and it's not all remote kids. We have some kids in school that are struggling too because their parents are out of work and things like that, even though they're at school. They're going through the struggle of COVID, but it is so hard to watch a kid struggle at home when they know that they could just get them in front of the impact they could have.
Ken, before we jump to Adam, you shared some numbers with me. I happened to be at the middle school today, and Ken and I had a really nice conversation about this. And he shared some enlightening numbers with me that I haven't stopped thinking about, but a lot of the failure rate numbers, and he said this about kids who are struggling, aren't necessarily all remote kids. that we're having bigger failure rates even with our in-person kids. And the hypothesis was just a lot of social emotional life things that are here for kids.
Yeah.
That maybe we don't
Sure.
realize.
Yeah, the first trimester, we had about 160 students that had at least one failure in the core. I wasn't looking at electives, so it was cores. But only 41 of them were remote. Now, we just finished the trimester and just locked in grades today, so I could only quickly kind of look through them today, but it looked like it was a reduction, closer to about 120 students in our building that had one core failure. And I wasn't able to dig in, I didn't have time to dig into how many of them were remote. But I can tell you this, it's gonna be smaller because we keep bringing, you know, I was talking about how I'm recruiting kids to come back. I get at least 1 or 2 calls a week, wanting kids to come back. But I'm not turning people away. I'm just not, we created these timelines for, oh, you gotta tell us by this and this time. And they went, yep, give me a couple days to get a desk in their room and make sure, you know, we allow the kids in their rooms, the rooms are too full. They work just, you know, maybe 1 or 2 hours a day they have to work in the media center remotely because there's just not enough safe space in that classroom. So it's already full. That happens mostly in the youth grade, but yeah, so we're seeing some.
First, there's 2 more weeks in the quota, so get those renewals in, or 2 more weeks in your quota period in the first quarter. Yeah, so get those renewals in, right? So doing math, it's about 15% of the students in the middle school are still remote.
We were at 16 last week, and I feel like it's lower because
I mean, every number
I've
is
done some work.
a big impact there. But about in the first quarter, 25 or first semester, 25% of those students were the 1 failure or more.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know more than 1 failure versus like, are there a larger number of failures with the remote students than in-person students? So not just the 1, but multiple. And I'd really love to know those numbers when you get the grades from the second trimester that just started just to make some comparisons. I've been fielding a lot of calls this week from parents who don't have kids in that 14, 15, 16% saying, when can we send our kids back on Fridays? You know, and we talked about, it's not just your kid that's learning here, and we teach all students, and, you know, success for everybody is important, but they're concerned about lost time and more about their kids just not being actively busy during some of the times on Friday. And I talked a little bit with them about, you know, how they can see what they're supposed to be doing. My kids knows me all the time on Friday. Take them back, set them down, Google Classroom here. Nope, you got an assignment, you've got an assignment. So, you know, it's hard to say what's reality and what's, you know, kids being kids, but just want to make sure that we talk about all sides of the spectrum in terms of,
you know, I get a couple of those emails a week about why are we still doing the Fridays?
Yeah.
It's because it's hard. If your student is not having some of these struggles, it just feels like it's one more thing working against them on top of the pandemic. So I absolutely understand that. And we're going to reevaluate when we come back from spring break. We'll staff meet again, and I feel like people are continuing to come back, and you know, we'll look at ways we can continue to support kids. You know, a lot of it is counselors making phone calls to those kids. I had a parent today, and I said, hey, just let them come in and we'll put them in a room where they're safe. That's right. You're worried about them being safe? How about I keep them in a room in the office and we'll come visit them? But they just need to be out of your house, because house is home and comfortable and not structured. But school is starts to feel more structured. I mean, that's really what I see. These kids, they can't make the transition anymore.
well, I mean, I have one of those, it's impossible to have them home, but more than that, the concerns I heard this week were academic. You know, we're losing another day of instruction, testing's coming up, SATs coming up, those kind of things, you know, that they feel like with the numbers going lower and the failure rates improving, that maybe it's a time to revisit and talk. And I said, I will share that at the meeting.
Sure. We will continue to revisit it.
I heard the same thing.
Yeah.
It's funny that I heard the opposite. You know, in that a lot of the students, they really enjoy that Friday because it's their opportunity to get caught up and get the things done that they need to get done. At least the high school, right? So when you said the SAT, ACT, fifth year, you know, their child is they're using that day And really helpful day for them, they're pushing so hard during the week that they like that day to get the things done that they need to get done. At the high school level, junior high level, they're all not quite as my kids are.
May I ask how the teacher feedback is on either the middle school or the high school, how the teacher feedback is on it?
So I'm gonna go through some of that.
Or,
At
okay,
the high school level,
awesome.
but.
Yeah, I know that a lot of our teachers are reporting that they see the impact of meeting with those kids. Because on a regular school day, you could not sit down
Oh, no.
for 5 minutes with a student and really go, especially now, because the last 5 minutes past your cleaning table. You could have said, well, while kids are cleaning up, pull a kid off to the side and have a quick conversation about, hey, this is what we need to do. This, remember, you still need to do this and that other thing, but it is literally, there is none of that. So they are reporting that, that appreciation for that time. But there's also, we all recognize that there is nothing better than having kids in fun. There's just not. So we're trying to find that.
Yeah.
Is it true more kids are in school because there's less illness because we've been cleaning so much? I've heard some teachers say to me, like, they have very few kids absent anymore due to the flu and colds and stuff.
This is the mask.
I mean, hey, you're there. I don't know.
That is.
I don't know if that's perception.
Anecdotal, but
Yeah.
I gotta believe, I know that I haven't hardly even had a runny nose this year.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you, Ken, very much. All right. Adam.
So I gave you guys a packet. I ran some of our numbers, our current reality at the high school right now. We're sitting at 80-20, in person, 8%, 20% home, remote. We were more 70-30 when we came back from the winter break. We brought about 150 students back since February. We continue. I just got like 10 emails when we were sitting here, so more kids are going back. So we keep bringing some kids back too. And I would echo everything that Ken said, but I would also just want to add a perspective that there are some students who are succeeding in remote and doing very well, and it is good for them. I think the best things for to have the majority of our kids in there, but there are obviously a small population that we've talked about that are succeeding in the remote growth. So, we're sitting at 11, little over 11% failure rate. I broke it down. As you see, our failure rate amongst our remote students is obviously our highest piece there. Of our in-person students right now, we're at 8% failure rate. And of the students who we just brought back, they were at 17% failure rate before coming back. So we'll keep on them. Almost 7% of our students have a grade within the D range right now. Add those together, we're about at 18% of students who are near or at failing. Now, obviously, that means that we have a large portion who's not there, but if you see my note on the bottom, and typically we're right around 3% failure rate. So it is a significant issue. When I came here in October and presented the plan, we were at like that 15% in October, when you guys remember, those of you who were here. I am very pleased that we ended up with all the chaos of first semester, ended up near a 6% failure rate for first semester. And when I was sitting over at Iowa County with all the principals over there, and we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, we were kind of sharing some of these things, and everyone just gasped and looked at me and said, "Are you serious with a 6% failure rate?" So, I can't pinpoint it on the remote plan. I can't pinpoint the first semester on that, but I can just pinpoint it on the fact that we had a lot of chaos, and I feel like the staff did an unbelievable job empathizing, understanding, but also continuing to teach. And I think that there was a lot of stress during first semester about exams at the high school, specifically, like, why are we having exams when everybody else has continued to waive them or make policies on? And it was a rough go for some of our kids, but things like the SAT coming up and things like that, I think are helping prepare our kids for that resiliency, for that ability that, this is hard right now, but we're not canceling everything. Everything's not being waived, and everything's not being, forgiven and things like that. So I think that is a piece of that. To answer your question, Ken, that comes up pretty regularly about, some of these pieces. And I think Lori Koza's in here. I have a couple of staff members pieces in here. Lori Koza hits on the mental health side of that, about how some of our high achieving students are finding that they are getting a better sleep, studying, health ratio. Because yeah, like, I mean, Monday through Thursday, they're working their tails off, and they're involved in a lot of things, and now a lot of things are happening again. They're able to go to activities and youth group and whatever they're going to, right? But they're finding a healthier balance with that. She's finding with the students that she's meeting with, and I can tell you that there's kids in her office constantly, and it's not kids that are coming from, crazy scenarios. It's students who have 4.0s I've seen walk in there. They're 3-sport athletes and walk in there and they're melting down. And so there are some things that are helping those kids on Fridays. Hal Vanderwall, our AP US history teacher, he was pretty honest in there. You can get through his big words in there. He was pretty honest. He was in my office not on board 100% on this. And after the first time he did it, you remember back in the fall, then the second week we had the overmold. He came down just ecstatic because he did this workshop model in the afternoon where he could really hone in on some of these skills, and kids could be able to pop in there and get some additional help. And he was like, I wanted to do something like this for years, and he forced me to do something that I didn't want to do, and now it worked out. Now he has kids feeling that idea of kind of like that next level college feel of, making their own schedule, learning how to manage that, and going in there. And then Sarah Laidlaw had a comment in there about just the importance it's been for students with IEPs to be able to work with them one-on-one, small groups, more intentionally throughout the week, because that's a population of students who's struggled with this duality of in-person and remote instruction. So those are just a couple of things I wanted to add on. That last Friday, our band directors were able to get the bands together, both remote students and in-person students, and have a concert. They brought a videographer in and was able to film a concert. I went down there, it was just awesome. So that was a cool experience that they've been able to do some of those pieces. Mike Cox, our new AV teacher, was able to bring in some remote students who felt comfortable coming in a smaller environment from their parents allowed them. They were able to use our equipment to use editing and do some things. So it's not perfect for, every scenario, but when, from my perspective, this duality that we're in, it is taking longer to get through things. It is being longer to, there's not that time to be able to help students one-on-one. I don't think we're losing instructional time. I've had multiple teachers tell me they're actually getting through more because there's an intentional focus on some of the things. Our AP teachers are telling me they're going to be fine for this. And I think about this nationally, right? AP is a national test. We've been in school every day since, in some version since August 24th. So I feel like if you put our instructional time up against a lot of places, I'd say that there's a high reality that we'd be close up there. And I understand that there's probably some flexibility, maybe some free time on Fridays for students who are achieving at a high level, but there's options. I know I sent Brent you some options, tell Luke to get a book or something, but there are some things that they can be doing, but I also think like the thing that Roger probably put in the board update that I sent him, some kids went out to Grandville and played basketball and they helped a student, right? Like, these standards that we're telling kids that they're missing, I'm seeing that they're growing in standards of empathy, gratitude, and resiliency. And so like some of those soft skills that I see it every day. And to see our kids doing things like that, I can tell you 10 other stories that are like that too. So this is something that's unique. I get it, but our failure rates show it. But our teachers are using the time. I can't tell you how many times it's been good to hear teachers say, I haven't got this kid to talk all year, and they finally talked to me on Friday. And also to say, I was able to connect with some kids. I was able to get this thing done. They're looking at better assessments, and how are they adjusting what they need to assess and how they want to assess. So I know that there's some things that we haven't ironed out when it expected us to, with us putting this together in a year, but it really has been invaluable for my staff and for many of my students. So,
Well, and I think, this year has really taught us a lot about just that empathy piece and that our teachers also needed also. So I appreciate you empowering your faculty to do the things that they did, like Kyle, I read his the best I could in a 5-point font. And it's just amazing, and you got a lot of different personalities. Same with Ken, right? And the support they're giving to your teachers is just phenomenal. And you're building resiliency among them also. So we appreciate it very much. Barb?
I had a question with the data, and that it says 18% of classes are near, at, or failing. Is that, so how do you figure that? So if there's a majority of kids failing a class, it's a failing class?
so you have,
Or are we talking
you have
about
about
students?
1735, 1340 kids right now in the high school, right?
Okay,
Every kid has 6 classes,
good.
right?
Okay.
So you multiply that by 6, and then see how many are failing.
They have an F in their
Yeah,
class
yeah,
then?
F,
Because I
yeah.
noticed this next one is talking about an F, so that's kind of the gauge or the.
Yeah, so I said 80% of classes are near or at failing.
Yeah.
So what I did is I put the B range with the F.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I just wasn't exactly sure.
And
I
that's
mean, I know an
compounded
F
by-
is.
That's not 18% of students are failing a class.
No,
Because it's compounded if, unfortunately, we have students failing multiple classes, they're compounded in.
okay,
That's why I put 25% of students have these one.
that's
So we
just
have
one.
just a
Okay.
little over 450 students who
It-
are.
And you're finding that your remote students are having the failure rates at a higher number than, like, in the middle school, it was really those people who are coming in person. Do you see it opposite at the high school?
Say that again. sorry.
I'm sorry. It sounded like you were saying that your remote students are the ones who are in this failing area, maybe a higher percentage than your in-person folks. Where I heard Ken say that at the middle school, your people who are face-to-face are having more failure rates. True?
That, now, mind you, there would be some failures, natural failures anyway, but
Okay.
yes, the percentage of students that were failing was higher in the
In your in-person.
because there's so many more of those kids.
Oh, okay, that's.
You know what I mean? 'Cause we only have 100
Okay.
of our
Very
850
bad.
kids,
Okay,
there's only 130 that are remote.
So
I
you
guess
see
I
our
was just trying to-
23% failure for remote, that's about 380-ish
Okay.
students, but 8% of in-person students, you're talking about 1250,
Got it.
1300 kids. So,
Okay.
so I can break it down and
That's
break
fine.
down by how many students for both those, but
Okay.
that's,
I just needed a little clarification there on that.
yeah, no problem.
Classes.
Did that clear it up?
Yes, it did. Thank you so much.
So I'm actually kind of shocked, just real quick, on the 20% of students are remote. That seems like a large number. Do we, I mean, I don't want to say it scares me a little bit, but it does scare me a little bit. You thinking, is this an option you think parents are gonna want to have going forward in the future that they're gonna start asking for?
Stay tuned to the next board meeting. We'll be bringing you our plan looking at next.
Yeah.
And yeah, we don't see that. I'll just say, we see a need, but we don't see a need for 20% because we know what the best education is.
Right.
Overall for most every kid, but there is a group who might be a unique group who might benefit, whether it's medical or some other unique circumstance.
Yeah.
And we might consider something for that very small population.
Yeah.
But not 20%.
No.
Because that's not, I don't see, I mean, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now in my mind if the world were at a point where we could have 97% of our kids back in person because parents felt comfortable with that.
Mhm.
And I think Jason too, like, there are a lot of families who have chosen to keep their kids remote because they're doing okay, but they don't want to be contact traced out or because we're allowing them to do extracurricular activities. And like, that's a real part of the high school, which is different than the middle
Yeah,
school.
we have a handful of kids that don't come back because they're heavily invested in the travel sport, but not to the degree
Yeah.
But I do have some of those.
My anxiety is through the roof right now in winter sports because of some of these things, but like that's, I think that plays a portion as to why the high school numbers may be low.
Okay, yeah, well, I mean, in the middle school, I mean, I think it's an awful, it's a tough one to see roll out. Because your kids are, listen, I got 2 middle schoolers, right? And they see a, squirrel and it's over, right? So all the things trying to do online learning as well as the class, and I feel for those teachers.
If you just look at it,
Together, the high school is a little different, right?
the needs of kids that are young teens, the things that they need, like, I was telling parents the other day, healthy risk taking. In other words, you used to be able to go out and ask the girl to go to the skating rink or take a chance and go sit with a group of kids at lunch that you wouldn't normally. So those are those things that middle school age kids are going through that they need to build their confidence. There's a lot of that kind of stuff that they need for their development right now that they're just not getting. They're not getting it. And, that's a struggle. But tell you what, I just have to say this, our behavior in our building this year has been fun. Our kids have just stepped up and been wonderful. We just haven't had significant issues. That would make things that much more challenging if you were dealing with tough behavior. Our kids have been wonderful.
My son must tell me he took some healthy risk taking at the high school when they got to eat outside last week. They tried to sit 12 at a table till Mr. Wynn came by. But we're outside. So we settled on it. Thank you for all this data.
Yeah,
And especially
super good.
Kyle's testimony means a lot. I know what kind of teacher he is and how dedicated he is and how every minute in the seat matters. Hearing him say that it's working out is great. I'm glad this is working for students. I would like to know before we move on to this, how is it working for teachers and their own health? Has it helped them?
Yeah, I think that, by nature, my staff, I'm sure kind of feel the same way. They were in a tough spot in the fall because they felt like they couldn't give the students, the parents, the community, the kind of education that they were accustomed to. And I think that weighed on them more than they probably wanted to admit. Because when I synthesized all those conversations over the first semester, I think it came down to, they just felt like they were inadequate. And I just tried to remind them that, like, just by virtue of being here in school, like we've kind of mentioned, right? Like that's the stuff that we need to start having conversations about little things, Brian Parsons and I were talking about how when we have conversations about playing time, like things are somewhat normal because back in August, we were just worried about stepping foot in the building. So I think our teachers are feeling like this has given them some of that ability to feel like they're giving students what they need. Whereas before, they just kept feeling like they were missing kids. They were like, I didn't even talk to that kid today. I didn't even get a chance to check in with that kid today. I'm not doing my best job that I know I can do. And so this has allowed them to be more intentional Monday through Thursday, getting what they need to do, still giving content or things on Fridays, but checking in with kids and building those relationships that I think our staff values. So.
That is absolutely, the great way to put it is efficacy. When you feel like you're making a difference, it's helped that you just feel so much better. And at the beginning of the year, the teachers didn't feel like they were as effective, and it was just, it was making them crazy. It was making them crazy because they hold such a high standard for what they do for kids. And you can just see it. It's so fun to watch them communicate. They send group emails about, hey, I just found this new thing. It happened today with Jeff Bukowski. I just found this way of when you're correcting papers, you can leave a recorded message to the kids for feedback instead of typing in comments about what they could adjust. And everybody just jumps on board and they get excited, but it's just different. They are more efficacious than they've been all year, and it shows when you do go into the class. And I know I told Roger and John, a couple others the other day, that you walk into the rooms and they've got an iPad hanging from the ceiling, and they've got
one, maybe two laptops and then a third screen. And it took me a while to figure out why they needed it all, but it's to make sure that the kids at home were feeling as included as the kids in school. So they had to come up with some different tricks to make that work, so that the kids in class could hear the other students respond. So the kids at home could see what's on the screen, but yet the teacher could still see their face and they could see, their face. Just a ton of tricks that they learned throughout the year, but it took us so long to figure it out, but it is, as Adam said, you can see it, overall the feelings that the teachers are having being effective, to get to.
Well, and also kudos to the district and the boards that preceded our words and the members who've been here for a long time, because I'm watching districts who are not only dealing with all this, but most of them have never been one-to-one. To have 6 years of this under our belts is a huge leap. We got schools all over the country figuring out where to press the power button right now and do all that stuff right now. So
That makes me think too of, moving on to college, that, my daughter is getting her bachelor's and it's all online. By the way, she's getting her degree in elementary education. Especially in special ed. But anyways, all online, and so these skills of learning like this, I think, may be important as you move forward in your career of some sort. Anyway, I just wanted to say that it's not great. I know that maybe given skills that will take them further with their education.
Good deal. Okay, we need to vote on this.
Okay.
All right, so all in favor accepting this recommendation, say aye. All opposed? Excellent. Thank you so much for all of the information and obviously the great questions and remarks. All right, we have to move on to an important item. Kim, and this would be the Chromebooks. Okay, so here we go. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the purchase of 2,000 Dell Chromebooks at a price of $454,000. The purchase will also require $48,000 for Chrome management licenses and a $26,000 allowance for device cases. The total approved purchase price is $528,000. Can I have a motion? Excellent. All right.
And our expert Chromebook guy and all things technology. See you guys. Thank you. Walt, go ahead.
So this is, every year I come to you guys and come with, or ask for approval for a Chromebook purchase. This is the annual purchase that, kind of refreshes a portion of our Chromebook one-to-one device fleet and keeps them up and running and optional for the students. I am coming to you guys a little bit early this year, and the reason for that is that we learned a lesson last year. We ordered 1,500 Chromebooks for our students right around this time last year and didn't end up getting those devices until November.
Oh my gosh.
Just because of,
Wow.
backlogs related to COVID and things like that. So this year I'm coming a little bit earlier so we can be sure we get the devices ordered this year. So actually with these 2,000 devices, we still have the 1,500 devices right now right across the alley here in the page, ready to deploy. We will be deploying with this purchase 3,500 devices this summer. So basically every student in the district grade 3 through 12 will be getting a new Chromebook with this purchase except for 2 grades. So, I will note also in here, there was a description of Google raised the price of the management licenses that go with these Chromebooks. They require us to purchase those licenses so that we can have the device in our management system. We can apply filtering, web filtering, and things like that to it. And they were going to raise the price of that from $24 to $31 before this meeting. And so when I saw that, obviously I wanted to move quickly on that. So I worked with Roger to make sure we could at least get that order done. Because ultimately that saved $14,000.
Excellent.
Okay, you get to stay.
The sale ends tomorrow. All right.
It was that quick too. I told them, I said, we'll get it in the board update. We did had that in your board update, but it was a great move on Walt's part. board, I mean, geez, a matter of a few days and we save that much money. So
Unbelievable.
You said 14,000? Yeah.
I can't believe they're raising this rate.
All right,
this year.
anybody have any other questions? All right, we're gonna take a roll call vote on this, please.
Farm,
Yeah.
Fairdean,
Yes.
Behind,
Yes.
Fine.
Yes.
Yes. Hello.
Yes.
Yes. Excellent. All right, so we're on to just some discussion items. Roger.
Sure, so strategic plan, visual, first blush at a visual, thanks to Jill Bondry. So we took the discussions that we had with you, the things we had talked about, tried to capture that all in this, and so giving this to you and just looking for feedback. I know you're just getting it, so I don't expect a ton right now, but what I would suggest is take it home. We're in no hurry. Take it home, take a look at it. If there's anything you wonder, you see, you notice, whatever, please mention. And we'll take a look, and if we need to go back to, Jill needs to go back to the drawing board, she's the expert in that area, then we'll have her do so. But anyway, this was our first go round.
I like the layout.
I agree.
It's simple, it kind of tells the story as you go around. You can go any way you want. It's
Yeah.
going to tell the story.
Yeah.
Very nice.
We did all this?
Yes. Well, you and the community, you and the parents and the kids in the community. 'Cause
Yeah,
I
it
know
really
is
is.
everybody giving that input?
Great.
So, I would say take a look at it. Give me, if there is anything, give it to me. If I don't hear from you, I'll probably mention it in a board update, and then we'll probably come back. If there's nothing, then we will come back for an approval of this, and then visually get it in places. And we have some ideas on some other things we'd like to connect to this, since this really does, really sum up who we are, what we're about, and how we go about our business, and so on. So yeah, take a look at it. Okay.
When you
And yeah, one more. The next thing, so we wanted to talk to you a little bit, and this will be big picture, but some student opportunities this summer. We will have some funding for some opportunities, and we've been discussing those amongst ourselves with staff and so on. So we just want to give you some big picture elementary and secondary thoughts, ideas. You won't have a lot of the details yet because we are working on those. But I'll turn it over, starting out, turn it over to
Thank
Dr.
you very much.
Merkel. and-
We had a lot to say tonight. So, yeah, this is all big picture. We were waiting last week. The state of Michigan passed House Bill 4048 that appropriated specific funding directly for summer learning opportunities. So we had already had some conversation about what we felt like based on some of the data that we talked about tonight, different pieces at the elementary level, what our community needed, what our students needed for some summer opportunities. So in really big picture, K-6, we plan to offer a summer program for remediation specifically for learning gaps focused on math and reading. We're going to target math and reading. We're going to layer in some science, and I'll talk about that in a second. 7, 8 as a combination of remediation and credit recovery. So in the past, our middle school has always run what they called a lab opportunity, and we're going to run that again. They were able to do that last year, even when most everything else shut down. They were some of our first virtual testers, and they want to do that again. But they also had a big meeting with their leadership team and want to provide some opportunities for kids that address that failure rate, and not so much like I call it credit recovery, but really the main idea is just making sure that we can support them in that essential content before they're moving on either to 8th grade or on to the high school. And then 9-12 will be specific credit recovery. And that's what we've done in the past to provide students the opportunity if they have failed a class to earn that credit back, or if they are at risk of not graduating. So the funding is nice for this. The summer programming, we can get up to $550 per student that we engage. Credit recovery, same amount. What's nice about that is credit recovery in the past, summer school for high school has always been the cost burden on the parent. This will take that off the parent, and it can help provide our staff some extra funding as well. You see in there, as part of that, the state has offered up a staff stipend of an additional $1,000 per teacher who participate in these experiences. There is some concern about, will we be able to get teachers, and will communities be able to get teachers? And so that's a nice bonus that we don't have to write in. It comes straight from MDE, $200, $250 per support staff. And then we can apply for an additional $100 per pupil for what the state is calling innovative programs. And the challenge with this is they've given us less than a vague description of what these might be.
Could be a good thing.
And so we're doing our best, but what they have said straight in the legislation are community-based projects, integrated opportunities that are kinesthetic or involve cognitive growth programming, or outdoor and adventure-based programs. So this is great. We're excited to see this.
I love that.
You can have it in the program. We had already had some conversation about wanting to take a morning elementary program, for example, and pair it with afternoon community ed opportunities. When we saw this, it layers in additional funding for us to develop those plans. I have a meeting on Thursday with Lindsay Parkowitz from the Visser Y. We've been great partners with them for the last couple of years. And I'm going to reach out and make sure we try to coordinate something with Chris Vogelar as well, and plug right into not only one element of community programming, but really try to wrap around opportunities for kids. With state funding comes state requirements. So again, they haven't given us a lot of guidance on this. All that was written in the legislation is that the program must be 8 weeks in length, Monday through Friday. They didn't give us a duration on that day. So most districts are being flexible with that time. It fits in with our vision because our credit recovery at the high school is typically 2 sessions, morning and afternoon, for kids to be able to class that up. And what we wanted to do, K-6 and maybe K-8, again, we haven't flushed it out yet, but was to have some academic time in the morning, and then afternoons would be that community experience time. So it has to be open to all students. This was new to us. Our initial discussion was we were really going to target our bottom 25 or 30%. But that's fine. We are even more excited. Our limitation was thinking that due to our own funding, we would have to make restrictions based on who could participate. And we would want to layer that for those that it might be most urgent. So we'll open it up to everybody, as to include an in-person option. We heard tonight that we know that that's most important. We might talk about some additional virtual options for those people, like Brent asked, why aren't people coming back? There are some people that still won't come back. And so are there ways that we can still reach out to them? We'll have conversations about that. So the credit recovery is eligible for any student who failed 1 or more courses this year or is not on track to graduate. So this could really help us if we have students that maybe aren't credit deficient this school year, but were last year. We can pick them up and hopefully bring them forward. So our initial structure is, like I said, K-6, we're hoping for a full day experience, half-day academics, 60-minute blocks for ELA and math, and then layer in some social emotional work as well. We have tremendous staff in that area. So we want to address those needs. What's great about this, we can tack it right into the summer meal program. I already talked to Jeff Ward, and we can offer free breakfast and lunch. That's a benefit to our district and the community. And then again, the afternoon partnerships we'll work on. 7th and 8th grade, likely half days. And we'll structure out whether students are in those lab experiences or if they're in kind of an essential skills credit piece. But they also, even before the state had released their guidelines, the middle school had sketched up something that had built in also social emotional learning and recreational type activities. So we think we're going to be able to do something there. And then 9-12, we're able to follow our traditional format, which has worked out well. 3 weeks, 4 sessions, morning and afternoon. So 3 weeks of a morning session and an afternoon session. And each of those equates to 1 semester. So a student, if a student failed 2 classes all year long, could earn that back. Credit is a half a semester, so they have 3 weeks and then 3 weeks again. So, and then the high school too, looking at layering in some type of the social emotional support for students. It's just been a tremendous need. Our timeline, so this was entertaining when the state first put this out. Their initial deadline was March 15th for these applications to be submitted. So today, yeah, right, and they were approved, I think last Thursday. So they bumped that up, fortunately. I can sleep a few hours a night, but the applications are due April 15th. The funding distribution is May 20. So this is going to be interesting for the business departments. They are going to distribute funding based on your estimated enrollment. Right? Yeah, I know, it's funny, isn't it? And then on June 15th, we're going to submit our actual program, our actual enrollment. And if we have overestimated our enrollment, we're going to have to return those funds. So anyway, Heather's like a magician, so she'll work that out. But you also don't want to underestimate.
Either that or you have through August to beat the bushes to get more people in.
Right.
Historically, though, you had to invite students like the K through 6, you invited them to come to this, and this in the past, or did anybody come in the past? Because right now it says everybody has to come, right?
Everybody has to be invited.
Or invited.
Invited. But in the past, well, we've never had something like this. In the past, when we did K-6 summer school, it was restricted to our Title I schools only, because that was the funding we could use.
I'm just thinking of like daycare that for K through 6 parents know about this. I think there'd be a lot of.
Yeah.
It could save them some money. Yeah. And then obviously June through August, we'll be working on program implementation throughout those 8 weeks. We'll structure that out. Right now, I think all of our gut feeling is we'll probably do 4 weeks and then a break and then 4 weeks. But we'll work that out once we see the calendar. And then this is not our only piece. There's a couple of other things that we've had conversation about. Special education. We want to make sure that we layer in resource room support for those students who need that. In addition, we want to combine this for our extended school year ESY for those qualifying students in our programs, our ASD and CI programs, so they can take advantage of this as well. We've always done that in the past. And we're talking about potential itinerant services for speech and language, social work. Again, there's that social emotional piece, and maybe even some occupational therapy for those people. That we're excited. The funding is there. We're gonna work real hard over the next month to get this structured and get people signed up. The other thing is just over the weekend, you know, that the Michigan Department of Education came out with recommendations for at-home summer reading programs, which has been our push over the last couple of years. There's a ton of research out there on the benefit of just reading at home, right, without instruction. The research says anywhere from 6 books, if you read Richard Allenton's research, to 8 to 10 books if you read some of the most recent research, but it can not only stop summer loss, but it can actually increase students' ability to comprehend. But the problem is engagement. So they're pushing that as well. So we're going to have some conversation for those people again who maybe won't come in or can't come in or won't commit to 8 weeks. What can we do to just get them some resources at home if they're at least committed to that? So I know that's a ton, and I can talk really fast, I can tell. But
So-
we're really excited about this.
Some questions.
Yep.
So how are you gonna, I'm just looking at the number, the staff stipends,
Yep.
right? So that's $1,000, right? On here.
On top of.
On top of hourly rate.
Okay,
So we
gotcha.
will pay our teachers an hourly rate. We have in our master agreement, in our contract, we have an hourly summer school rate.
Got it.
They'll get
Okay.
paid for that. That $1,000
Yeah.
is like a signing bonus.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And then how are you going to, then you'll just be putting a feeler out to anybody who's interested in doing that.
Yep, so our conversations were, once we have enough information to put out to parents, dates and some structures, we will send something out to get initial registrations, and then we'll probably do a follow-up for commitments, because I didn't even talk about, in the past, when we've done summer school, we've offered transportation as well. We want to eliminate all barriers. So we'll have to figure out all of those things, and then we'll get, in addition to space. Like Brent said, boy, if we build it and everybody comes.
I think that's because parents are already having their kids go to daycare that they pay for, this would be way better than that.
Does sound incredible.
Does your book initiative, from Department of Education, do you partner with the libraries ever? They have, these programs are
We do.
really well run.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've, first of all, the staff at the Grandville Library is the best around. They are amazing. And so we typically meet every spring to kind of revise, how can we partner to get kids there? We try to do a combination with Barnes and Noble and get kids there. So we'll do all of that. In the past, we also spent some federal dollars that we had on buying our own books, created our own book bags and sent them home and did our own exchanges. That was helpful. But again, it's that extended engagement piece, but we have to get kids the books. So that'll be our main focus.
I mean, I just coached Battle of the Books, and that's kind of cool. Like, you can figure out how to make it,
Yep.
you know, an engaging competition even, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
So you never know. I mean,
I'm
I
on-
just feel like the library is so
Yeah.
good here.
Oh,
Yeah.
very.
And I think,
Oh,
you
okay.
know, community ed, anything we can do through there, if you think about it, if the kid participates, and that's, I mean, you've got to have some incentives in there other than, hey, you get to come do math and read. I mean, we
Yeah.
all know how fired up every kid's gonna get about that, right, in the summer. So if you can link in the fact that they have not experienced a lot of the getting together socially with friends and peers and so on, and do some classes through community ed, and that's free during that afternoon, we think that's a big attraction too. Yeah, you can be a part of this camp or this whatever, you know, be a part of this, and you get to be that for free. And like Brent said, hey, what great childcare that is. If my kid's gonna be in there in the morning, they're gonna get breakfast, they're gonna be there in the morning, they're gonna get lunch, and they're gonna be there in the afternoon. That's pretty good.
And learn.
Good daycare.
And
like,
learn.
hey,
With
and I'm not-
transportation.
Oh,
You just gotta call it something fun, though, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not summer.
Are you able, besides adding it on to this, are you able to bring community ed, the typical programs for the summer? Are you able to bring any or all of that back this year for our families?
We are hoping to bring as much, as many opportunities as possible in the summer. We know for sure the outdoor activities and indoor activities with a plan, with a plan based on whatever the plan needs to be at that time with the different things that have to happen. So I think we'll be able to do that. And I think a lot of, with the funding we're gonna get, we should be able to fund a lot of that in the summer, things that people normally pay for. We might be able to fund it so that we're able to run it, of course, that's in and out money. Be able to fund those things for kids so that they have those opportunities. But and the people who would be funded for would be the people who are in the summer program.
So I think I understood, but maybe I didn't. So let's say a family's like, you know what, my kids had enough. They need to just be with their peers. Are we offering or going to offer that, so it's not tied to the educational piece?
Yeah, we'll still have those programs, community ed type
Correct.
classes, summer,
That's what I'm looking
yeah,
at.
we'll have those. It's just, I think this is an incentive.
No, and I understand that. I get that.
This funding can pay for kids who participate in the overall program. So that'll be an incentive as well.
No, and I
You
get
know, to
that.
run
Right.
dual.
And I get that. It's just that some parents are gonna say, you know what?
Yeah.
It's time for them to get back to their.
Yep.
Mhm.
Because
you know what?
Side of that,
If mask is required, it's going to possibly affect you. I think.
I will manage.
And the flip side of that is I hope we can be flexible enough if a parent says, I'll send them in the morning, but then that's it, we have home stuff we're doing, or something like that. I mean, hopefully we can.
yeah, there's a lot of kids who are in camps, travel, this, that, or the other.
Accessible.
Yep.
So, I sent everyone directly the presentation.
Yeah.
If you want to look at it again, or if you have any questions, please let us know, and we'll obviously be able to share more on one speech.
I have a couple real quick ones. When we do this, are we going to communicate clearly to our community that this is possibly just this year? Like, I don't want the funding expectation to be there. Like, they get all excited and all invested this year, and then next year the state goes, well, we're all caught up. I really want to make sure our community knows this is a
You
special
stated
one-time
as
opportunity.
We have a unique opportunity for recovery.
Right.
Parents-
Yeah. I mean, if we can do it every year. But,
Well, if they don't,
Catch it
if they
before
don't
it's gone.
approve all the money, we might be.
are itinerant services just for those enrolled in the program, or are you saying itinerant services for any child in special education, even if they're not in the summer program?
I don't know yet.
Okay,
We're not far enough down that road to know what or how those might.
okay. When we talk about, I'm just like buzzing through them so we
Yeah.
get through. When we talk about middle school credit recovery, are those, when you say that, you're talking about credit recovery for middle schoolers who are taking high school level courses, or are you talking about regular courses?
Regular courses.
Do they get credit in the middle school?
Well, yes and no.
Yeah.
And that's why I said it's really essential skills
Yeah,
focus, based on those students that maybe, one of the things, you asked a question earlier about data. One of the things about data is that we have some kids that just haven't been engaged,
right.
significant absences, and the state, county and the state level has handled truancy very differently this year because of everything.
Yeah.
So there are a number of kids that we hope to engage, whether it's absence-based learning loss, disengagement learning loss, or just needing remediation.
Can we possibly state it as such for the middle schoolers, not say credit recovery where
Yes,
credits aren't
absolutely.
created?
Yeah.
Okay. I just don't want to confuse parents if their children are
No.
losing credit if they're
Yeah.
not credit put together. The YMCA has wanted this for so long, right? Can we offer swimming lessons? We live in a land of lakes. Children should be swimming. If you talk to them this week, will you
Yeah.
consider?
Yeah,
bringing
oh
that
yeah,
up?
we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
the Y is working on getting their program up and running as well.
Right.
We partnered with them in the past on their summer day camp, which they're not running. So it's win-win for them to
Yeah.
get people in their facilities and to use their programs and
Right.
resources. So-
I used to work out for Ravenna schools, and we pulled in every third grader every year during the school year for 2 straight weeks and took them to the Y and taught every third grader how to swim. And I thought that was one of the best things that we did.
Well, Grandville used to have drown season.
Yeah.
And it was,
We did.
my mother-in-law ran it,
You know,
so.
I just,
God rest her soul.
So important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, busing, I wonder if the library can't do it, if we can, maybe mobile library into some of the communities around. I think that's part of the issue is like, I live way out by Metro Hospital and I'm just gonna tell my kids to bike over here while I'm working because they have to cross Rivertown. They're just not doing it. So unless the library is closer to them, they lose opportunity to go. Can we bring libraries to them? Maybe put some popsicles at the door to lure them out of the, and a puppy. And a puppy.
Yeah, and we've, all evolving conversations
Yeah.
that we've tried over the last years as well, including, KPL has a mobile library.
Yeah, they do.
Getting booked and accessible
Right.
is always questionable, but that's
Have to read
exactly
our own.
what we did with our own individual book exchange for book bags. Once we tried it at the library, because we thought, great opportunity, get them signed up, get them comfortable with the library.
Yeah.
Other places we've done it at the school, because again,
Yeah.
they're comfortable with it, they might be up at Cummings or south of town, so we'll be talking about all those. things.
Kim, we need you to move into Grandville.
Well, yeah.
I'll keep my eye on it.
Find me a house here that'll.
You got it, girl.
I will be here.
Well, my son is gonna be a new resident of Grandville. They purchased a home, so we're pretty
Exciting.
pumped. Yeah. Yep, really excited. Right by Central, in the backyard practically. It's good stuff. Uh-huh. So I think that it was an amazing meeting. Thank you for your presentation. Does anybody else have any questions? We're good. Okay, we are meeting again and not until after spring break.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be awesome. So everybody have safe travels and whatever y'all might be doing, because I know I'm going. But other than that, the meeting is adjourned. Yeah, deep out of house.
Yeah, it's behind Central or on, this other
Oh
side.
my God, it's right. I mean, you walk out the door. and there's a- It's cute. Yeah, do you know Marshall Force? So Marshall, that's. Yeah.
Yeah, where they can be out. and just
We're really
not-
lucky.
Yeah. Like they don't have to-
We were talking to
Yeah.
and, young,
Granddaughter.
Yeah.
Definitely change.
Like, or,
Yeah.
The other place.
Yeah.
They cannot.
No, there's nothing.
Yeah.
So we,
So they said,
so they put the offer in, and they didn't give it the first round. And on the second file, Kim, thank you for these quotes. You're so
Welcome.
sweet.
I have a lot more. I just couldn't get to them.
Love it.
So.
Thank you so much.
She
I
knows
know
her
she
particular
did.
side.
Yeah, she will love it. I would love for you to meet her.
Yeah.
She will put it down.
We, I don't give my stuff that goes out. I usually save it. and
Yeah.
Central stuff or Catholic kids that don't have it that need.
Yeah.
So happy to.
Nice. I
send them
love
out
it.
that way.
Yeah,